are live, and we will give it just a little bit of time. We do already have one person in here, but to that one person, we'll give it a little bit of time to let other people get in. It says that we're unable to connect to the chat. I don't know. I hope that I will see a live chat. If whoever's here already could test that potentially, hopefully we can see whoever it is. That would be great. But
send us a message.
Yes.
Let us know that you're there.
Yes. So we are going to go ahead and get right into it. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen of Vanderbilt, and welcome to Terrier Talk Season 2, Episode 12. Senior night last night, not last night, Friday night for the football team. Senior night for volleyball a few weeks ago. A lot of getting into the playoffs for those teams, all of our fall sports. And we have two great interviewees here with us, Chris Bogwine and Jackson Robichaud, very well dressed for the occasion. Thank you. So, yes. So we're going to get right into it. Senior night. An interesting story with both of you guys going into the game. So, first off, you might notice Jackson's little brace on his arm. You did not play in the game against Morgan City. So what happened with the arm?
In my left bicep, I completely tore the lateral head of mine.
Wow. So how? First of all, when did that happen? Was it against Assumption?
That was against Assumption.
Okay.
And I didn't really find out until Saturday morning.
Right. Did you play through it?
Yeah, I played through it.
Wow. What's the timetable usually for those kind of injuries?
A couple months. With surgery, but I shouldn't be having surgery, depending on how it heals. But
is there a chance you'll be able to play either this week or potentially if we make a run?
I will have a checkup with Allender on Tuesday.
Okay. So I obviously I hope you'll be able to play in these very important, the last few games of all of our careers, or of the season. But in the meantime, with the Morgan City game, you weren't able to play for that one. Chris, on senior night, wore your number 41. And
41 Magnum.
Yes.
41 Magnum.
And so was there anything relating to like why you specifically took it or anything like that with?
I mean, usually like when seniors get hurt for their senior night, like one of their senior friends will wear their number. So
did you decide it or did Jackson decide it? Like who it would be?
Kind of both.
Okay.
Like I asked him if I could wear it.
It was a mutual agreement.
It was a mutual. Well, that's great, and I'm happy the number was still able to be represented at the game. And while the stat line didn't really show anything, for this game only had like 1 or 2 tackles. Only had to play in the first half, partially because of the numerical domination on both sides of the ball, and especially on the defense for Vanderbilt against Morgan City. No real surprise, but still, a great performance, a great game from you guys for this game. So I'm happy you guys were able to pull through and I guess give Jackson the night he deserved with that. So not much to talk about with the Morgan City game. Great games from a few players. Not really, no specific seniors, but great games.
For the young guys.
Right. Alex Will also kind of took over a drive.
Yeah.
Even James Weaver had a great game with a little strip and then run back for about 20 yards. But not much to talk about with the seniors. Senior night, Morgan City is not that great of a team. It seems that we are not connecting to the chat, which is an interesting problem. I don't really know how to fix it. If there is no response to the chat during this live stream, I don't know how to fix it, and I kind of fear trying to fix it during the episode as with regards to potentially messing up the episode. So I'm sorry if there's no replying or interacting. That's why. I'm obviously very pleased anyone who is coming out and watching this and is trying to interact, but I apologize if there isn't anything with that during this episode. But I'm sorry about that. So, not much to talk about with Morgan City. Great game for us. Big win. A lot more to talk about with the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because,
What
well, right. First, Morgan City's not that great of a team, but we have
else?
Archbishop Cannon, yes. And a lot with that game because if you look at our bracket, say this year as opposed to last year. Last year we have a really stacked division. We ended up I think we were 12 seeded last year, and we're going to play like the 4 team or the 5 team, and it ends up being De La Salle, and we're like, why isn't this team in top 3 with a bye? And then they have a great game, and we end up losing. But this season's very different. Our road to getting to the finals is there. We have a chance to do it. We have Assumption this week. We have to take care of business there. But then we have ULab. ULab's a very good team. We've lost to them in the second round of playoffs before back in our 8th grade year, but they're beatable. Then we have to go play the 2 seed, probably. These are all the potential highest seeded matchups. In the semifinals, we'd have to play the 2 seed, who I'm forgetting the name of it right now. It was, De La Salle, aptly. Who isn't as good as they were last year. Yeah. They're higher seeded this year. And again, they would be beatable if we can get that momentum in play like we can play. And then we'd play probably the best, the highest seeded, but probably the best team in the state, St. Thomas More. But we'd have a chance to get to that point against a team that we would not be favored against. But anything can happen once we get to that finals game. So it feels, I don't know, the feeling in the locker room, the feeling as a part of the team feels different this year as opposed to last year. Would you guys agree with that? I feel like
I completely agree with that.
Unlike last year, it's like, why are we playing De La Salle? We don't have a chance. This year,
we're ready for anything we play.
Yes, we can make a run. We can go deep into this, and we can do something great. But we can't look at ULab. We can't look at De La Salle. We can't look at St. Thomas More right now. We have to take care of business, and we have to beat Hannon first. Because the thing about Hannon is they're not the same marquee team that ULab is. They're not the same marquee team that St. Thomas More or De La Salle will be. But we've lost to them in playoffs before. We can lose to them again, and we have to be prepared for this. Because as much as these 2 last games have been statistically pretty great for us, going up against Assumption, a team that we were not favored to beat, and playing them to overtime and being this close to winning the game, and then beating Morgan City by 44, there were mistakes. On both sides of the ball, there were mistakes. There were costly mistakes, whether they're penalties, blown assignments on both sides of the ball, and we can't have those mistakes if we're going to win a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, we have to play a mentally perfect game.
Yes. Even more so than the physical aspect of it.
Yeah.
There's so much pressure. There's so much going on during those games that we have to be disciplined, we have to be focused, and we have to be sharp in order to win these games. Is there anything specific that you want to talk about either with the defensive backs or with the defensive linemen, whether you're on the field or not, Jackson, that specifically might be important to win these games?
Pretty much for the defensive backs, the only thing is mentally, we got to play the right coverage. Mm-hmm. We got to play with the technique we're taught, and should shut every team we play down if we do that.
Right. I mean, theoretically, in the game plan,
we haven't pegged every week game plan wise. We know, we're calling out plays on the field. We know we have the right play for every formation they bring in. It's just doing your job.
It's definitely it's something that if everything goes right, they shouldn't score a point. If
pretty much.
And having that mentality, I think, is a huge difference between, maybe not this year and last year, we have the same defensive coordinator, between a great defense and the players as well, between a great defense and a not great defense. Yeah. And I think this defense, no matter what statistically we may look at with the numbers against Westgate and Dutchtown, whatever, is a great defense. And we've made mistakes, we've had problems, but we've been that level that we need in order to move on to the next level and make a run at this. Is there anything you want to talk about with the defensive line specifically, Jackson?
Well, playing a run-heavy team like Hannon, D-line's going to have to step up, play primary and secondary gaps, keep the linebackers clean, make the plays. It's that simple.
Yeah. Schematically, there's something very interesting
with mistakes.
Right. With the entire front seven. This isn't going to be the flashy 77% assumption passing offense, or I don't know exactly how Morgan City's schematic is really not really the point.
Yeah.
But there isn't that flashy, passing through the zones, anything like that. It's going to be in the trenches, hard nose. Have to have your
old school football.
Not only you have to have your assignment right, but you have to be physical enough to accomplish it. And I think that is definitely going to be very important going into this game and being able to beat Hannon and then move on and make a run towards the Superdome. So I think that's going to be huge. And I think both of you guys, whether Jackson's going to be on the field or not, whether you're going to be on the field or not, are going to be huge keys in order to be able to do that. So thank you for coming on. Congratulations on a very successful senior night. And thank you for being on the show.
Of course, definitely.
Thank you. Okay. So, moving a few things around here. Give us a second. A little bit of a quicker interview this time. Not the same 20-minute description of the Assumption game with Chandler last week, but every week is different, and not much of a recap this week. We'll talk about that more specifically in just 1 second. But still very happy to have both Chris and Jackson on for the show. I would like to thank again both of them for coming on. I do want to go ahead and address the live chat if anyone wasn't on here earlier. We're having trouble connecting that. I don't know really how to fix it without risking the stream going down and then having to re-upload that. So I don't really want to worry about it too much. I'm just going to go ahead and go through the show. If anyone has questions or comments or concerns, I'll try to reply to them maybe in the comment section of the YouTube video after the episode is uploaded, after the live stream is uploaded. But for now, I can't really have that live interaction because I don't really know how to fix the problem. I apologize. I'm going to go ahead and move on, though. So a little bit more of a general description for those who haven't, a little bit more of a general description for those who haven't watched or weren't there to watch the Morgan City game. Morgan City's not a great football team, and I don't think there's any surprise when I say that in anyone. That's whether it's schematically, maybe it's other coach, the players, it's not a great football team. I don't know if they've won a game since I've been at Vanderbilt, which is pretty pitiful. And the thing is, our opponent wasn't the point with senior night. The point, I guess superficially the point was senior night, and it's great to see us get a win. And that's really important. That's awesome. But more than that, with the football team specifically and going into the future, the point of this game was cleaning up our mistakes, playing as a clean, focused, hard-fought, well-driven team. And honestly, despite what the scoreboard may tell you, I don't think we succeeded in that today. Or not today, Friday night. I don't think we succeeded in that this week. I think we didn't have the game that I really hoped, and I think a lot of the other people, maybe not just in the locker room, but the coach's office outside of that, hoped that we could have had. I look at our matchup versus their defense, and I think it should have been domination. We should have scored on every single possession. And we didn't do that. We had a fumble. We made a few mistakes. Part of it was in the second half. We had our second team offense on there, but the fumble can't happen. We can't have turnovers against Morgan City. Because we have one turnover against Morgan City, we're going to have 3 against whatever playoff team we have, theoretically speaking, because Morgan City's not that good of a team. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into that. And having only 1 is definitely an improvement to the 4 against Assumption and the many that we had in many of the other games that we had throughout this season. Or 3, against Assumption. But we can't have those mistakes against South Terrebonne. We cannot do it. And then again, on the defense, we had some costly penalties. It was a problem that we had against Assumption as well. There were a lot of costly penalties that ended up eventually costing us the game. Here we had costly penalties that extended drives that gave Morgan City more chances than we should have. We had missed assignments both on offense and on defense, giving up a touchdown that we should never give up against Morgan City. We didn't give up a point against Eleanor. We didn't give up a point outside of the turnover short field, and they still held them to a field goal against South Lafourche. We didn't give up a point to Morgan City last year, and we shouldn't have given up a point to them this year. But we made mistakes. We let them get down there, and they eventually scored a touchdown against our defense. That should never have happened. We made a lot of similar mistakes that we made against Assumption the week before, and we ended up losing that game to a great team. This was our chance to clean up those mistakes, and I don't think we did it as well as we needed to going into the playoffs. I'll talk more about the Hannon game later on in the main event, but and we have a chance against a honestly not great Hannon team, despite it being a 6th seed and a road playoff game. But we have to play better than this if we want to win this game and then make a run into the playoffs. So that's the football game. Volleyball had a couple of playoff victories. It's nice to see, despite the fact that we had what I'll call a down year. A little bit of a disappointing regular season. That's not to say that we were bad, but far from it. It's partially my point. But despite us losing some games that I wish we didn't lose to EDY, to Assumption, to a couple of other teams, we still had 2 dominant home playoff games going into the season. Now we're in quarters. Now we're playing an actual team against St. Thomas More. I'll talk about that in a minute. But even though we had not as great of a year as we had last year, and even though we're in Division 2, we're still among the elites. We're the 4 seed in the playoffs. We're among the elites in our division, and we have a chance to make a run at the championship and at the 3-peat. Cross country this week had the district championship, similar to the River Parish, except not quite the same competition. The girls swept because, of course, they did. The boys won in more convincing fashion than they did against Terrebonne. They didn't have to face Terrebonne, so I assume they had the same a better run here competitively than they did in the intense close competition that they had to Terrebonne the last week in River Parish. District championship for both the boys and the girls. Congratulations to both of them, and I wish them the best of luck going into state in the next few weeks. And then finally, I want to give a little bit of a quick shout out to the band. They had their district performance on Tuesday, and they got all superiors. So congratulations to them for that. I know how hard that can be, how difficult that can be to do, and wish them the best of luck. I think they had their Saturday showcase. I don't know what the results were for that, but I wish them the best of luck with that, and I hope they had a great showcase. Moving on to previews on starting with volleyball. Volleyball has a very big matchup this week. It is at home. It is the 4-5 matchup in quarterfinals of the playoffs, and it is against St. Thomas More. Very, very interesting matchup if you look at it, because you look at St. Thomas More, and St. Thomas More is one of those schools, kind of like a Brother Martin or a Jesuit or a Mount Carmel, whatever, that's seen as they're very highly regarded in pretty much every sport. And that's the same here with volleyball. They're the 5 seed out of 32 teams, or nearly 32 teams, 20 teams, something like that after all. But for us, as being able to be hosting a playoff game against them is a pretty high achievement. Usually it's St. Thomas More hosting these sort of playoff games. We saw that with softball last year. We had a chance, we had to travel with them, and we ended up losing that game pretty heavily. But this is us hosting it, probably being favored in this game, moving on to the semifinals. Now, that's not to say it'll be easy. St. Thomas More is a very good team. They haven't played as many games as I thought they would have. I think they're like 10-6 or something like that over the course of the season. At least that's what Max Prep said. I don't know if they're exactly trustworthy when it comes to the volleyball keeping of record, but I don't know a better record to look at. But they're still a very good team. They're still St. Thomas More. But it's a home game in the playoffs with us having a chance to beat them and move on to the semifinals. I would say we're favored in this game. I would say we still have a very good chance at winning this game. And I like our ability to get into the semifinals and make a run at the 3-peat. Even if we lost some games that we didn't want to lose in the regular season, even if it's only a co-district championship against Assumption, we have a chance to make a run because we're still that good of a team. This is largely the same core that won the state championship the year previous. The only a couple players missing from that. It's still largely that same team. That core of juniors from last year is a core of seniors this year, and that experience is paying off. And we'll see if it pays off going into the St. Thomas More game. So I wish us, the girls the best of luck going into that game. I also want to quickly mention the boys and girls basketball jamboree. I'll give not really much of a season preview here. Obviously, the Jamboree will happen. We are starting to move into the winter sports. Soccer's also having some scrimmages going into this week. But Girls Jamboree on Wednesday, they place, I think, South Terrebonne. The Boys Jamboree on Thursday is going to be hosted by Vanderbilt starting at 5:30, and we'll be doing the announcing for that event. Good luck there. But, two very strong senior cores for both the boys and the girls. For the girls, you have Brittany Terrier, you have Leah Verrett, Amy Parrott, among others, a lot of senior girls. Kate Pomplin, who we had on the program last year. For the boys, you have Alexis Seth Ponsa, who we also had on the program last year, Kayla Calhoun, Kenyon Charles, who all have been major contributors over the last 2 or 3 years, again, among others. But lots of seniors for the girls and the boys. Hopefully they'll be able to lead going into this big senior season for both teams, and we'll see the beginning of that in the Jamboree. And finally, the playoff game against Hannon. I'll talk about this a little bit more extensively. So, Hannon, it's an interesting history between the two teams. It's the first rematch in the playoffs, I think, since we've had this playoff bracket system with the private schools and the public schools being separated. Hannon, we already played in the playoffs since we've started this. We played them my sophomore year 2 years ago. We traveled to Hannon. It was, I think, the 8-9 game of the division that year, and we ended up losing that game. I think it was 35-20. That was a team that had a lot of hype going into the year. We did, and then we kind of underachieved going into the latter half of the season. We ended up losing to Hannon. This year, it's very different. Hannon is still the young football program that they were 2 years ago when they had that. They're still not a very big school. They just started their football program, and this year they're 4-6, which for a 6 seed in Division II of football is a pretty big surprise. Considering last year, I mentioned this with both Jackson and Chris. Considering last year, it wasn't. It was a lot more stacked of a division, I guess to say. We played De La Salle as a lower seed. We were a higher seed, and we ended up losing that game pretty heavily. This Hannon team, I would maybe go as far as to say, despite the fact that they're 5 seeds higher than us, despite the fact that they are hosting this playoff game, I would go as far as to say that we're probably the favorites going into this. Now, that being said, we have to clean up the mental mistakes. We have to play a mentally near-perfect game, and we have to be focused on this game in order to win it. There is not much of a margin of error. Hannon is not an amazing team. Hannon is not a great team. But they can win this game. They are hosting this game. This game is going to be in Covington, New Orleans, that area. It's going to be a long trip. We cannot play with those mental mistakes that we've had in the latter half of the season against Assumption, against Morgan City. We have to clean them up. We have to not have those costly penalties, those costly mistakes. But if we do that, we can be a great team, go into Hannon, win that game, and then make a run. I said it before, the 3 seeds ULAB, they had a chance. They had a chance in previous years to be great. They haven't been that great this year. They aren't as good as they were in years previous. It's a beatable team. Then we go next week probably to play De La Salle. They're not the team that they were last year. And it's a different feeling this year because it feels like we can make a run. If we clean up the mistakes, and it's a big if, we can make a deep run into state this year. But it all starts with this game at Hannon on Friday night. It'll probably be a pretty cold game. But I wish, of course, the football team the best of luck going into the game. And I hope everyone enjoyed this episode, a little bit of a shorter one this week. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Same channel. See you.